You gave them everything: your time, your heart, your energy, your loyalty. You believed in the future you were building together. You ignored the red flags because you thought love could fix it. You prayed, you fought, you tried to make it work, but it still fell apart. And now you're left with questions. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? Why did God let me invest so much into something that was destined to fail? But what if it didn't fail? What if it was never meant to succeed? What if the relationship you're mourning was never God's will for your life, and the ending you call heartbreak was actually God's intervention? What if the greatest act of love God has shown you this year was stopping you from marrying the wrong person? Let me show you the real reason your relationship failed. First, they were blocking the person God already prepared for you. Imagine you re-praying for a spouse while you still emotionally tied to someone who was never part of God's plan. You're asking God to send the right person, but you're holding hands with the wrong one. God will not send what He's prepared while you're clinging to what He never approved. That's not how divine alignment works. Ecclesiastes 3-6 says there's a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away. God had to end that relationship to make room for the one He ordained. Somewhere right now, there's a person praying for someone exactly like you. Someone whose calling aligns with yours. Someone whose love language matches your needs. Someone whose faith strengthens your walk with God instead of competing with it. But they couldn't enter your life while you were holding on to someone who didn't belong there. The breakup you're crying over was God clearing space for the covenant you've been praying for. Second, God saw what you refused to see. You saw potential. God saw reality. You saw what they could become. God saw what they were choosing to remain. You focused on the good days and excused the bad ones. But God was counting the patterns you ignored. Jeremiah 17:10 says, "I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind." God wasn't looking at their words. He was reading their heart. And what He saw was incompatible with where He's taking you. Maybe they loved you, but they didn't love God. Maybe they were good to you in public, but dismissed you in private. Maybe they supported your dreams, but sabotaged your peace. Maybe they were loyal, but spiritually dead. And you convinced yourself that love was enough. But 2 Corinthians 6:14 asks, "What fellowship can light have with darkness?" God couldn't let you build a life with someone whose foundation was contrary to your purpose. So He ended it before you could legally bind yourself to a lifetime of spiritual compromise. Third, the relationship was teaching you what you don't want, so you'll recognize what you need. Not every relationship is meant to last. Some are meant to teach. Romans 8:28 promises, "In all things, God works for the good of those who love Him." Even the painful things, even the failed relationships. God used that person to show you what real love isn't, to reveal what you will no longer tolerate. To clarify what you actually need in a partner, you've learned that chemistry without commitment is chaos. That attraction without alignment is exhausting. That someone can be a good person but still be the wrong person for you. And now, because of that failed relationship, you have standards you didn't have before. Boundaries you won't cross. Deal breakers you won't negotiate. That relationship didn't fail. It succeeded in teaching you what you needed to learn before the right person arrives. Fourth, you were loving them more than you were trusting God. 1 John 4:18 says, "Perfect love drives out fear." But you were afraid of being alone, afraid of starting over. Afraid that if you let them go, no one else would come. So you held on longer than you should have. You forgave things that should have ended it. You silenced the voice of God because you didn't want to face the silence of singleness. But God will not share His place in your life. He will not compete for your attention. And when you made that relationship your source of security instead of Him, God had to dismantle it. Not to hurt you, but to redirect your worship. He's teaching you that your peace cannot depend on another person. Your joy cannot be tied to a relationship status. Your worth is not determined by who chooses to stay. And until you learn that, God will keep removing anything you try to put in His place. Fifth, they were a distraction from the assignment God gave you. God has called you to something specific: a ministry, a mission, a business, a movement. And some relationships are designed by the enemy to keep you so emotionally entangled that you never step into what God assigned. Luke 9:62 says, "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God." That relationship was pulling your focus. It was consuming your prayer time. It was draining the energy you needed for your calling. And God, in His mercy, ended it before it aborted your destiny. You think you lost love, but you were about to lose your purpose. And God values what He's called you to do more than what you want to hold on to. Finally, God loved you too much to let you settle. You were willing to accept half-hearted love because you were tired of waiting. You were ready to lower your standards because loneliness was louder than discernment. But God said no. Psalm 84:11 declares, "No good thing does He withhold from those whose walk is blameless." If God withheld that relationship, it's because it wasn't good for you. And if it wasn't good, why would you want it? The relationship failed because God has something better. Someone better. A love that doesn't drain you, but strengthens you. A partner who doesn't compete with your calling, but complements it. A covenant so aligned with God's will that you'll look back on every failed relationship and thank Him for every closed door. Stop replaying what ended. Stop blaming yourself. Stop stalking their social media. That chapter is closed because God is writing a better one. And when the right person arrives, in the right season, under the right covering, you'll finally understand that every failure was God's protection. Declare this: I release what God removed. I trust what God is preparing. I will not settle for less than His best. Say it until you believe it. Your love story isn't over. It's just beginning. God bless you.